Hello, my name is Alexandra, also known as Chaos Child, and in today's tutorial I will be teaching you how to make frosted metal. Frosted metal is different from polished metal in that it is softer, but it will still capture all of the light and shadow. I will be using this chest plate as an example, as it will show you the best way to capture the light and the shadow in accordance with the shape. I am working in the Adobe Cloud version of Photoshop, and my image is at 900 dpi. The first thing you should do is lay down the basic color of your piece and make sure that you do not go anywhere outside of the lines you want to work in. I have put the color on a separate layer and I have locked its pixels so I cannot color outside of this area. I'll begin by selecting my brush tool. I'm going to pick a semi-hard brush at about 200 pixels. My opacity is set to 30% and my brush mode is set to multiply. I'm going to select the same color that I used to color this piece in the first place, and I will begin laying down the basic shadow. The semi-hard brush will help us control where the shadows are going and make them more defined, while the slight softness to it will keep it from being too harsh. Once you've laid down the basics of your shadow, you should go and mark down the various places where your shadows are more extreme, places where objects may be overlapping, or are close enough to cast a shadow or reflective shape. You don't have to be too extreme with it, because while it will be darker than normal since it is metal, it will not be as dark and prominent as polished metal. You should also pay attention to how close an object is to the metal, because that will change the direction of the shadow. For this piece right here, it moves away from the curve, and so the shadow will begin by clinging to it, and then it will move farther away as it goes down, and it will be darker near the top and lighter near the bottom. Now that we have our basic shadows down, I'm going to switch to a fluffier brush, an airbrush, and I'm going to change the shape ever so slightly to an oval to better control my shadow placement. And I'm going to start marking down this curve following the shape since it is a rounded one. I'm not going to go all the way down to the edge as I normally would, since again, metal likes to catch light and cling to edges. I'm going to go dark, but I'm not going to go as dark or harsh as I would with the shadows of a more polished piece. I'm also going to put a few shadows up on top to help emphasize the curve and the shape of the piece that I'm working with. Don't be afraid to go back and darken up your shadows if you don't like how light they look. Just remember that your shadow should not touch the edge. Now I'm ready to put down my highlights. I'm going to switch over to a brighter color, in this case white, and I'm going to change my brush type to overlay, and I'm going to just put down the basic places where the highlights are. You'll notice that, like with the shadows, while these are bright, it's not as bright as it would be with the more polished metal up top. This is what helps give the metal its frosted look while still helping to convey that it is in fact metal. I'm also going to mark down some basic highlights around the curves and the edges, since light, even if the metal is not polished, will cling to them. I'm just not going to go as harsh as I normally would. It helps give it a softer feel while still maintaining the intensity of metal. I'm going to change the size of my brush down to about 100 pixels while still keeping the ovoid shape. And I'm going to turn the opacity from 30% up to 100%. Please keep in mind that I am using a tablet pen, so I have full control over my pressure sensitivity. If you are using a mouse, you will not, so you will probably want to stick with 30% and just work your way up. I'm going to press down very lightly and keep my highlights from getting too harsh. I'll go over some of the more prominent pieces of the curve near the top that would collect the light, while still allowing a slight highlight near the bottom, just not as harsh. I'm going to place some more delicate highlights up top, and changing my brush to a slightly smaller size of about, in this case, about 70 pixels. I'm going to go and add delicate highlights to the bottom, since again, metal will capture any light that is nearby even if it's already reflected off the surface and bounce it back up. By putting bright colors, even if they're not as bright as the top, near the darker places, the darker shadows, we give our piece the effect of metal. Feel free to go back and touch up your highlights. You may want to shrink your brush down to a very small angle and add little flecks and marks to imply nearby shapes or nearby reflective bits of light. And you have created frosted metal. I hope that you found the tutorial useful, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!
Like what you see? Then please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you!